Before you are a leader, success is all about growing yourself. When you become a leader, success is all about growing others. And we are blessed with so dedicated leaders in our District 20 family who wants their members to grow as good leaders. So we have such workshops arranged for all of us. A very pleasant good evening to all the amazing distinguished Toastmasters and guests of District 20 family. Recognizing the presence of our district trios, I guess Aditi will be joining soon. District 20, DD, DTM Alifia Lakadawala, our ever-smiling program quality director, DTM Khalid Abdullah, and our ever-shining club growth director, DTM Khalid Jalal. And in our midst, we have DTM Aditya Maheswaran, the first runner-up for the World Championship of Public Speaking 2015, one of the greatest speakers around the world. Wow. A very warm welcome to all the district officials, our division and area directors, all the members of District 20 family for joining this workshop. A very warm welcome to everyone. Let's remember our District 20 mission first. We build new clubs and support all clubs to achieve excellence. Indeed, we are all so blessed to be the part of District 20 family, which comprises of such dedicated leaders. My dears, before we start, I would like to state some ground rules. Keep your microphones muted while the meeting is on. You can unmute your microphones when required or called upon to speak. And we would love and encourage all the participants to keep your videos open so that we will have a very lively session together. Refrain from chatting while the workshop is on. Please note, we will have the Q&A session towards the end of this meeting. You can all direct your questions and queries directly to my chat, so I'll be taking care at the end. Now it's time to hear from our District 20 trios. When they give their addresses, we feel so blessed, motivated, and encouraged, isn't it? So let me first welcome, I hope our district director is in.
No, she apologized. She won't be able to make it.
Oh, fine, no worries. So in her absence, we remember her, District 20 director, our charming DTM Alifia Lakdawala. So she has informed that she won't be joining us, but still we remember and we love her a lot. So it gives me immense pleasure now to welcome the program quality director of District 20 family. Not only the program quality director, he's have taken so many roles. He's our immediate past club growth director, president of Active Minds Toastmasters Club, president of Bahrain Advanced Toastmasters Club, vice president membership of Babco Toastmasters Club, club secretary of Tamkan Club Toastmasters Club, immediate president, past president of Bahrain Advanced Toastmasters Club, sponsor, mentor, and member of St. Paul Toastmasters Club. His purpose in life is to lead his kids by a good example of a father to be followed, and that's why he's a Toastmaster. With a loud round of applause, join me in welcoming our program quality director of District 20, our own ever-smiling DTM Khalid Abdullah, for his PQD address.
Thank you so much, Master of Ceremonies and Area 34 Director Toastmaster Jenny Johara. Would acknowledge the presence in her absence, District 20 Director, and on that occasion as well wish all of our members, our family members in Kuwait a happy National Day. Club Growth Director, no confusion so far. Many confuses his name with my name, DTM Khalid Jalal. I can see Division H Director as well here, DTM Siha Muhammad. Our champion, DTM Aditya, thank you so much for joining us here today. Members of District 20 and beyond, good evening to all of you. Before we started this meeting, I had a question. Why do we have such workshops series? And that's a good question. I've been attending many club meetings, and one of the meetings, if I remember correctly, it was in Alexandria Toastmaster Club. One of the members there, yay, Dr. Nasreen. One of the members there pointed out that they needed to have crafting a speech. They needed to have a workshop on crafting a speech. And this is exactly what we did. We wanted to have an ear to listen. And And we had that workshop, and thanks for DTM Aditya for being here today with us to have that workshop. There would be a few more workshops as well coming in. And with this, I'm here to have as well an ear to listen. If there are any more education or workshops that you wish to have, please let me know. Reach out to me or to the PQD team, and we would definitely make that a reality. We are going through April renewal. And what we want to do at that specific time is to add more value to our members. And that's why we have such workshops. Thank you so much for the leaders of the hour, District 20 leaders, for being here today with us. And let's enjoy today's workshop. Back to you, Master of Ceremony.
Thank you so much, DTM Khalid Abdullah, our Program Quality Director, for your wonderful address to your members. And I'm so happy to invite the next dignitary in list. That's our Club Growth Director, DTM Khalid Jalal. District 20 had witnessed his contribution in growth, retention, and best program qualities when he was a division director last term, which not only contributed in district success as a district, but he contributed the highest number of distinguished clubs in Regional 11 from District 20, making the District 20 very proud. Approximately 10% of current active clubs in District 20 are his personal contribution, and he has helped 35 members with educational credits towards their DTM qualification. He also gets the credit of chartering the largest Toastmasters club in District 20, which is KPMG Toastmasters Club, with membership strength of 78 members. He introduced approximately 300 members to Toastmasters after experiencing how Toastmasters has helped him in his personal growth and development. His motto in Toastmasters is to expand the district, serve and support each and every member of District 20 to become one of the best leaders, who can then make more leaders, because Toastmaster is where leaders are made. With a warm round of applause, join me in welcoming our shining Club Growth Director of District 20, our own DTM Khalid Jalal.
Thank you very much, Master of Ceremony, Toastmaster Jini Johara. Shining. Yes, I put a lot of lights today in my room so that I become so shiny. Let me recognize the presence of our Program Quality Director, Distinguished Toastmaster Khalid Abdullah. No confusion today, Alhamdulillah. This is our second meeting together today, and everyone knows. So we are missing that fun part. So I asked someone, why don't you just create that confusion as a fun and let us enjoy and laugh a little bit. Because everyone complains that I don't laugh and I have a very angry face, but I'm sure today with our special guest, he will make us laugh and I will also laugh with everyone. Let me also recognize the presence of our other dignitaries in this room, Division H Director, Distinguished Toastmaster Seham Muhammad, and yes, our members from Alexandria Toastmaster Club, the club president, he's here, the club VP Education, VP Membership, 3 of them are in this meeting today, and all the other members. And our special, I can see Toastmaster Sanju Thomas. He has put Lion of Judah. This is a new club which we are working on. Soon will be chartered. So soon we will be having the club in our roster. And special thanks to our special guest, Distinguished Toastmaster Aditya Maheswaran, who is here to help us in knowing how to write the best script for our speech. We always say in our meetings, in our clubs, write the speech which can help you win in the club contest. But is that enough? So the answer is yes and no. It may be the best script you have written with your club guide, but what could be better than someone who has gone through the entire path of club, area, division, district, till the world champion level, and bring all the experience of years of experience, the hard work which he has put in, the number of mentors who have mentored him, the number of scripts he has written, rewritten, and rewritten, and make that script which took him to that stage in that red carpet. So imagine that experience which he is going to share with us. I'd like to thank our PQD who brought him in today, so we all learn from his experience. We in Toastmaster, we want to make sure that we do our best to develop ourselves and also develop our colleagues. We are here to help each other. We are here to learn from each other. And that's what we are going to do today. How a speech is scripted, how it is started, how the body is crafted, how it is ended with a message, and much more that we will hear today from our speaker. And why I'm saying all this, let's hear from our speaker himself. So without taking much of your time, thank you very much, and back to you, our Master of Ceremonies.
Thank you so much, our Club Growth Director of District 20, DTM Khalid Jalal, for your CGD address. We have 2 ears and 1 mouth, so that we can listen twice as much as we speak. So let all sharpen our ears and listen very keenly to our one of the greatest speaker around the world. Wow, now it gives me immense pleasure in inviting and welcoming DTM Aditya Maheswaran, a management consultant based in London. DTM Aditya is a keynote speaker and consultant in the area of strategy, information, and leadership development. He has addressed audiences in over 25 countries. Wow. He is passionate about business, leadership, public speaking, and philosophy. His coaching and thought leadership combines latest science with the eternal wisdom of life. He is the first Indian, wow, representing India to be the finalist at the World Championship for Public Speaking in 2015 in Las Vegas. It's a proud moment then, where he had podium finish. He's also a finalist in 2017 at Vancouver and a semi-finalist in 2014. Every one of you, put your hands together with a warm round of applause. Join me in welcoming the world's known speaker, DTM Aditya Maheswaran, to let us know the secrets of crafting our speeches. Over to you, DTM Aditya.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Master of Ceremonies. It's such a pleasure to be here. District Director, who's not with us today, with PQD, DTM Khalid Abdullah, CGD, DTM Khalid Jalal, and division governors and other officers. I must tell you that the MC talked about me winning the first runner-up at the World Championships in 2015. I was living in Mumbai then. Now I live in London, but at that time I was living in Mumbai. So when I took my flight from Las Vegas and I reached Mumbai, one of the first calls that I received as an invitation to invite me to come and speak at another district was by your then district officer in Bahrain. So in fact, one of the first countries I traveled to after coming back as a podium finisher in Las Vegas was Bahrain late in 2015. Before any other country in that part of the world, it was first Bahrain. So I have a special affiliation, and I feel at home when I speak to my friends at Bahrain. So thanks for inviting me again. The topic today is very specific. The topic is the art of crafting a winning speech. If only we knew the formula, if only I knew the formula, I would be really happy. So there is no single formula for that. But today we're going to explore some of the insights that have come to use for me in my own personal journey. And I hope some of that may be useful for you too. 45 minutes is quite a long time in a Zoom session. So I want to make it slightly interactive and keep more time for the Q&A and not bore you too much beginning with my presentation. So let's start with that. I want you to take a minute now to think about the topic for today. And what is it you really want to take away from this session? The session is called The Art of Creating a Captivating or Magical Script. Think about it for yourself. What's going to be most useful for you? If you were to ask one question that you would truly like an answer to, what would that question be that will help you create a better script and a better speech? I'm going to pause for 30 seconds for you to reflect on the question. And if a question has popped in your head already, just let me know, unmute yourself or put it on chat. Let me know what's going to be most helpful for you to learn out of this session.
Good evening, everyone. Aditya, is it okay to
go for
pop up the question?
Yeah.
How important is the body language when it comes to delivering a speech?
All right, sure. So Sanju's talking about body language in terms of creating impact during delivery. There's a comment on chat which talks about how do we really find out what's the message that I want to deliver? How do I? Because sometimes, Aditya, once I know exactly what the message is, I find it easy, but to get to that message seems so tough. Khalid Jalal puts on chat saying the tips and tricks of a best script. How do I handle the situation when we forget the lines during the speech? Khalid Jalal is practical. Suppose I do all of that, Aditya. What if I forget when I'm on stage? How do I handle that situation? And trust me, I've heard secrets from former world champions who within closed doors have confessed that some of them have forgotten their speeches at the finals of the World Championship. And one or two of them have yet gone on to win the World Championship, which means only you know that you've forgotten a speech unless you show it to the audience that you've forgotten it. So forgetting a speech is not the end of the road. Showing the audience that you've forgotten the speech, that's the end of the road. So what do you do between forgetting and between the time when your face starts showing that? How can you manage the situation? So we have a group on Facebook called the Finalists, where we add people who win their semifinals to get to the finals. And some of these crazy stories gets discussed there. The truth that doesn't come out outside of that group sometimes, but there's some good examples I can share with you later if time permits. Oh, there are many other questions on chat. I'm really happy with the number of questions here. So somebody says too much content I want to deliver and so little time. It's like water everywhere, but not a drop to drink. That's so true. But there's too much content most of the times when we are sitting and listening to others. But when we write a speech, sometimes there's no content at all. So there's both ways. How do I craft an outstanding introduction and conclusion? Mariam has asked that question. And Seham has asked, how do you keep yourself involved emotionally in all your speeches, especially when you have to repeat it? Club, area, division, district, semifinals, finals, regions. How do I keep the motivation? I mean, get all the audience in. All right, listen, brilliant questions there, and keep coming with it. The reason I asked with this is to just warm us up with what is it you truly want to take away from this session. What is it that becomes the first hindrance when you start thinking of preparing a speech for competition or just a normal speech in Toastmasters? All of you have given me great questions. Now let's go chronologically. Suppose you have to deliver a speech 2 weeks from now. What's the first roadblock that we face? Put it on chat. What's the first roadblock? Topic. Yeah. What's the topic? What's the message? Yes. So let's start with the topic itself. And then let's go chronologically. What's the second roadblock? What's typically the third roadblock? Let's try to unlock and unplug each of these roadblocks. So the first roadblock typically is absolutely right on chat. What's the topic? What's the message? What's the topic? What's the message? Because we get to other things like body language and similes and metaphors and working with words only after you know what the heck are we talking about, right? So what's the topic? So I've truly tried to think about this, asking myself, how do I generate topics? Because I I often speak very often. There was a time when I was part of 6 Toastmaster clubs simultaneously. Luckily not now, but there was a time when I was part of physical Toastmaster clubs. And which means I had to deliver at least 6 to 7 speeches every week, which means I needed topics. How do I generate topics? So after a lot of thought, I realized that there are topics everywhere, except when I need one. So I created a little framework for myself, which is what I call the 4I framework. It's on your screen now. I've just shared my screen. I realized that it's useful, not just useful, it's important to start with who I am. Who are you? That's right at the middle of it. Meaning, if I'm not a football fan, I don't need to talk about football. If I don't know about something, I don't need to talk about that. So really understanding yourself with respect to who you are, and then sprouting into what I call the 4 I's have been really useful for me. So what I do now is whenever I watch an interesting documentary, or I have an interesting conversation with friends, or I read something interesting online, I slot those as potential topics within these 4 I's. And later, it often comes to use for me when I'm searching for topics for my future speeches. Let me tell you what these 4 I's are, and you may find it useful too. 1, ideas. Ideas are, all of us have opinions about a lot of things, isn't it? That's why we get into problems sometimes. We start arguments and debates and Facebook discussions and all of that. But when you harness it properly, ideas are a great source of topics for you when it comes to speech contests and when it comes to regular speeches at Toastmasters and even outside, actually. Ideas, what I mean by ideas is, what is your opinion about something? What is your perspective about something? It could be anything. It could be about some of the key problems that people are facing today. It could be about the education system. It could be about the science. It could be about how to do something differently. It's about time. I have an idea of how leaders can be more effective. I have an idea of how to prioritize time. I have an idea of how to be more disciplined. So anything that your audience may benefit from, but you have a unique idea about. And ideas are often shaped, isn't it? Ideas are shaped by things you like, things you read, people you talk to. And we are often buzzing with ideas, but we don't have avenues to express it. So every time I think I have a new idea and I'm excited about it, I try to slot it under this heading in my own mind, saying, that's an idea I can speak about in future. And there are a lot of speeches I've delivered in Toastmasters where topics have come from this bucket, the ideas bucket. And with a little insight at the end of it, these can be great topics to pick up. I'm going to give you some examples of these later on, but I'm just going to complete this now. The second bucket is interests. Now, interests are all about, what are you passionate about? What do you like doing in your spare time? Where is it you have unique knowledge about that you've spent time on? Like my friends in India love cricket. And even an ordinary Toastmaster can give a 60-minute speech about the game cricket because they love it. I love something else. I'm interested in, say, physics. You're interested in reading books, or you're interested in something else. So interests can be a great source of topics for you, right? You have a unique interest in photography. You have a unique interest in collecting stamps. Now, what about that? What has that interest taught you about life? What has that activity taught you about life? How can you connect it with the audience? You may be interested in football, but you can use that interest to make a speech using football as an example. Football need not be the message. Something else could be the message about teamwork or leadership, but still you're focusing your speech on that interest, right? The third bucket I found useful is incidents. Now, incidences what are some defining moments in my life that have actually happened in my life that have changed my perspective or that have been really insightful for me? Incidents could be positive incidents like the day you got married, or the day you won a trophy, or the day you became the first postgraduate in your family, or the day you got your first job. Or it could be learning incidents where things didn't work out too well, like the day you got divorced, or the day or the time where something tragic happened, the time you lost your business, the time your child fell sick, something that's you've drawn an insight from. And you find most world champion speeches draw from personal incidents. And that's why we say personal stories are powerful, because they are your incidents. Nobody can come and tell you, Aditya, that is wrong. How can they tell something wrong, something that's happened in your life? So you can never go wrong with incidents. And some of my world champion speeches are all about incidents as well. Like, for example, the speech that won me the first runner-up at the World Championship was about me buying a black car, and the car got scratched. And I had my girlfriend in the car with me. And I got so freaked out about my new car getting scratched that over the next few weeks, I didn't behave properly with her. I was ignoring her. And then I realized that a car can get polished with just a little cash and the right polish in a mechanic shop. But in that process, I'd created a lot of internal scratches on people I love. And that takes more time to polish, etc., so on and so forth. But it all was anchored around an incident that had happened in my life. Now, to pick topics and incidents, you got to have a keen eye of life itself, because we are always looking for big incidents, isn't it? Most people tell me, Aditya, but I've never had big incidents in my life. I've never gone around the world. I have never won a Nobel Prize. I'm not an Olympian. I mean, how do I pick incidents that have given me so much of joy? But if you look at it, most world champion speeches have incidents that are very common to all of us. Like my car getting scratched, there was nothing to be proud of that. So it's not the incident in terms of size, it's incidents in your life that your audience can connect to. So from the time you woke up this morning till 7:30 now in Bahrain, probably there have been 2 or 3 incidents that if you had a keen eye to, were fodder for your future world champion speech. So you got to be paying attention to incidents. And there are so many other examples I can give you, but let's move on. And the final I that I like to think about is inspiration. Inspiration is all about what's inspired you about the world. I remember when I was still in Mumbai Toastmasters, I was giving my one of the project speeches in the old path, which is the CC manual 10th speech or something like that. I did my CC 16 times, so this was like the 16th project 10 speech or something like that. And I'd come up with an inspiring speech, because the 10th project, if you remember, is inspire your audience. It used to be called that a few years ago in the CC track. Some of you are still aware of that. I don't want to confuse you. So while I'd prepared a speech, I woke up that morning and I opened the newspaper, and there was this article about this lady. Let me show you the picture. So you see the slide on inspiration? You see this picture of a lady on the right? So this lady's name, if I remember right, was Lata Bhagavan Kare. It's a complicated name, but she's a Maharashtrian in India. She's from a village. And I was ready to go to my Toastmasters club. I opened the papers just to read what's happening. Well, it was still time when you read papers. Now you don't really read papers. You probably read your news online. But then something about this news struck me. This lady was a 60-year-old lady, and she had heard that there was a marathon going to happen in her village. It's called the Baramati Marathon. It's a few 50, 100 kilometers from Mumbai, I guess. You see others behind her. Everybody is running with proper tracksuit and probably Nike shoes and dry fit clothes. This lady decided to compete in the marathon because it was happening in her village. She didn't have shoes, of course, so she's running barefoot. She's wearing an Indian sari. It's called a Nawari sari, which is a special kind of Maharashtrian sari. And she doesn't have any equipment or dry foot. And she ends up winning the marathon. Can you believe it? The guy behind her couldn't run faster than her. And then people were astounded, surprised. So they went to her and asked her, Lata ji, how did you win the marathon? She said, I've been running longer than this every day in my village to fetch water, to help my grandchildren, etc., etc. So this didn't seem a big exercise to me at all. Anyway, long story short, I was reading this news that morning in the papers. Then I realized there is something so much more inspiring than this, than the speech I had prepared. So I changed my speech in the couple of hours that I had, and I spoke about Lata, this lady who won the marathon. And there are incidents like these in your lives which inspire you. It may not be personal events, but you get tremendously inspired by certain things. And those are great things to talk about as well. And this was an example of how I've used all four: ideas, interests, incidents, inspiration, to select topics. Now I want to move on now. So once you select your topics, what's the next roadblock that comes to us? And some of you rightly said, it's, Aditya, all these topics are fine, but what's the message that I draw out of it? So I want to talk to you about message now, which to me is a very important piece of crafting a speech. What do I mean by that? Now, once you select a topic, how do you land a message? Now, let me give you an example. Suppose you want to speak about blood donation. I mean, or anything else. You want to speak about football, whatever it is. Or you had a personal experience a couple of months ago to do something, and you want to talk to the audience about it. Now, you have an event, obviously. How much do you zoom in to be specific? I'm going to talk about blood donation because I heard the speech just yesterday in a Toastmaster speech. I'm sorry if it doesn't connect with some of you, but it's a good example to have. So in my club in London yesterday, I have a mentee who spoke about blood donation. And a week before that, he came to me with a script saying, Aditya, I donated blood in London a week ago, and it was such an inspiring experience. I want to use that speech for the area contest that happened yesterday. I said, fine. He asked me, Aditya, but I don't know what about it I'm actually trying to tell the audience. Then I asked him, let's do the zoom in, zoom out method to come up with the right core message. Now, if you pay attention here, you may draw an insight from what he learned, and you may be able to use it in your speeches too. Let's take this example of blood donation. Now, he already knows his topic. He wants to talk about his blood donation experience. But what he doesn't know is, what is the message that he's trying to convey the audience from the topic blood donation? Now, if he zooms in too much to blood donation itself, the problem with that is it becomes too specific, and it often excludes a part of the audience. Look at the message on the left. Is the message from this topic, is it letting the audience know the process of blood donation itself? Like step 1 to 5, go to find a blood bank, find your blood type, go and lie down on a bed. It's probably not that. He said, no, Aditya, that's not what I'm trying to say here. It's something not as detailed as that. So then let's zoom out a little. If it's not the process of blood donation, are you trying to talk about the benefits of blood donation, which is not as zoomed in, it's slightly zoomed out. So your speech is not about the 5 steps of blood donation. It's rather, what are the benefits of blood donation? Then let's try to zoom out a little more and see what's the right message here. What is a little more zoomed out than the benefits of blood donation? It's not about blood donation. It's about helping people who are in need. Then he was starting to think now we are actually reaching good territory, the message that sticks. He said, yes, that's more like what I want to convey through the story. It's not about blood donation. It's about helping others in need. Then he said, okay. I said, wait, there may be something more if you zoom out a little more. He said, okay, let's zoom out. I said, what's even more broader than helping others in need? Is it about giving of yourself to the world? He said, yes. That's exactly how I felt when I donated blood. And I said, let's zoom out a little more. What is more broader than giving of yourself of the world? It's what's the purpose of life itself. He said, no, that's too abstract. Now we are losing the audience. I said, okay, fine. Then probably the right level of zooming out of the topic blood donation for you is giving of yourself to the world. Now, how did we convert that into a speech? The topic is blood donation. The core message is we all can give of ourselves something to the world. And how did he make that connection? He said, listen, for me, it was donating blood. For you, it could be spending time with a loved one. For you, it could be providing charity to poor people. The point is not what you give, but are you giving of yourself to the world? The audience suddenly loved it. And he had converted an otherwise very specific topic on blood donation to a much larger world champion winning level speech of asking the audience a fundamental question that made them uncomfortable, which is, what are you giving of yourself to the world? The reason I said this slide may be important for you is because we all select great topics. If you come and ask me, Aditya, will blood donation win me the world championship? I will tell you, I don't know. And I'll ask you instead, what are you extracting as a core message and that you're giving the audience? Because out of the same speech, blood donation, you can give me a boring speech about what is the process of blood donation. Or you can make it too abstract and talk about purpose of life. Both are losing me. But there is something in the midpoint, which is a message that sticks. I call it the sticky message that you have to find out of every topic you choose, right? So in this example, each of these are good messages depending on the purpose of the speech. If you are a blood bank representative and your job is to educate people, then you may choose the process of blood donation. If you're a philosopher, you may choose purpose of life. But if you're a Toastmaster trying to speak to an audience and inspire them, you may want to choose either number 3 or number 4, which is talking about being of help to others. Or even more broader, what are you giving of yourself to the world? So that's how you draw your core message, which is you select a topic, then zoom in and zoom out and ask yourself, where do I stop the lens of this camera to say, now I've got a message that sticks. Now, once you get a message that sticks, how do you expand that message into a full speech? And the way I found it useful to do is start with the fundamentals and then get to the principles and then get to the tools. What we often do is take a message And we learn from some people or some Toastmasters that we need quotes and statistics and personal stories and humor. So we start trying to explore these. But that's where you come to at the end. I've always realized it's useful to start from the beginning, which is, I know I'm speaking about this topic. I know this is the core message. Who is really my audience? What do I mean by knowing your audience? Your audience are human beings. Human beings are irrational beings. A lot of people come to me and say, Aditya, I have good body language, I had good voice, I had jokes, I had humor, but I lost the speech. The other guy who probably was not perfect, he won the speech. How did that happen? We go with an assumption that just because we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in our speech, we'll win the speech. But human motivation is an irrational process. What do I mean by that? I'll give you an example. Why logic always doesn't work in public speaking. When I was young, and some of you might have heard this example before, when I was young, my mother used to be very strict with me. She used to try to instill discipline in me. If many of you may be mothers on this call, and you can imagine, a mother would ask me, Aditya, after you eat, put your dishes on the sink. Aditya, you have to do your own bed, wake up at 6 in the morning, etc., etc., etc. And as a son, I would never listen to her. So years passed, she was highly unsuccessful in making me disciplined. Many years passed, and now I was 25 years old. I was still living in Chennai in south of India with my parents. And I was 25 and I was working and I made my own salary. There was this famous American motivational speaker who came to India. He flew down from America and came to India. And he was charging a big amount of money for a 1-hour motivational speech. And I paid that money and wanted to attend his speech because I was already a Toastmaster and I wanted to attend his speech. I paid over $1,000 for a 1-hour speech. I went, got really motivated, came back home. And when I came back home, my mother, who was also older now, she asked me, Aditya, there seems to be a glow in your face. Tell me what happened. I told my mom, I've attended this motivational speech today and I've realized the secret to success in life. She said, Aditya, tell me the secret to success. What have you learned? I said, Mom, the secret to success is discipline. It's waking up early in the morning. It's doing your own bed. It's putting your vessels in the sink. It's taking charge. And my mom said, he said all that? I said, yes. Mom said, but I've been saying the same things to you from when you were 6 years old. And I said, yeah, you have, Mom. I don't know why I haven't been listening to you. Now, this is not just a joke. I can see some of your reactions here, but if you think about it, logically, who had more access to me? My mother did. Who loved me more? My mother did. Who did I love more? My mother. Who did I listen to? Some random American motivational speaker who I had to pay $1,000 for 1 hour, and he wasn't even speaking to me. He was speaking to 1,000 people in the auditorium. And I was taking notes, came home, and I said, I've changed my life because of that. It's very mean, and life is unjust. So your audience choose to get motivated when they want to be motivated, right? Your audience will choose to be inspired in their terms, not in your terms. Just like in school again, I spoke about my childhood, so I remember this. I'm probably sharing more than I should. My mother again had a problem with me that I never used to comb my hair when I was young. Well, I think her curse shows my hairstyle today probably, but she always complained, Aditya, you never comb your hair. My hair used to be all over the place when I was in 2nd standard and 3rd standard when I was a 6-year-old kid. One day in school, there was this pretty young girl in my school. Her name was Aarti. She looked at me, I remember, and said, Aditya, she was also 6 years old. She said, Aditya, your hair is so clumsy. From the next morning, after breakfast, before going to school, with nobody's intimation, I would go, take the comb my hair properly, and then only get to the school bus. And my mother looked at my father and said, see, I have finally motivated Aditya. She didn't know it wasn't her. It was the 6-year-old Aarti who insulted me in class the previous day. So without revealing anything more about my life, the point is people change or people get motivated by triggers not always within your control. A good public speaker understands this irrational nature of the mind of your audience. And you always start with, therefore, knowing your audience. What are Toastmasters typically irrational to? What are typically your set of audience irrational to? What will trigger motivation for them? You never start with, but I said the right thing. That's not what you start with. You may say everything right in the world, but if they're not ready to be motivated, they're not going to be motivated. In fact, they may just find you irritating for saying what you do. So when you try to expand the idea into the speech, don't start with the tools, start with the fundamentals. Who are my audience? Why do they need me for them to get motivated? What credibility do I already have? How do they see me already? So all of those fundamental questions will then lead you to certain principles. The principles are nothing but ensuring that you understanding the typical ways in which audience gets more curious and more attentive to your speech, right? Typically, I call it the PQRST. I mean, you could call it anything. The more you are picturizing what you're trying to say, the audience loves it more. And I've seen this through the last 16 years at Toastmasters. Often speakers were able to make things visual for the audience, where you're not saying, but you're showing. You're showing through your words. So picturizing is a great principle to use. Make things visual for your audience. Describe it. Instead of telling the audience just how you felt, show them how you felt by describing what was happening around you. What was the color of your background? What were you wearing? Who was with you? What did you hear? Make it visual for the audience. Paint a picture. Questions. If you're able to convert statements into questions, it makes the audience lean forward. Again, each time I test this out, it works magic. There are more questions in your speech. I'm telling you today, there'll be more tension from the audience. Simple things like, I lost my friend that day, and that was the worst day of my life. Say if there's a statement like that. Everybody sympathizes with you when you say, I lost my friend and that was the worst day of my life. But even then, converting that into a rhetorical question of how would you feel if your best friend dropped dead in front of you? Yes, I felt the same way that day. You see what I've done? I've said something very sincere, saying my friend died and that was the worst day in my life. Just by making them think of it, about that in their own lives, suppose their friend fell dead, by converting my statement into a question, it manifests, it quadruples the aha, the impact, the essence of what I'm trying to say to my audience, right? Then the next principle I like to follow is reinforce. Sometimes the mistake we as Toastmasters do is we try to convey too many things, too many different points in our speech. Great speakers like to reinforce one single point 10 times in their speech through different examples, different ways, right? See Dhananjay's speech, that I see something in you. Same thing reinforced 100 times. My speech, scratch, same message reinforced 10, 15 times. So how are you trying to reinforce key points in your speech again and again and again through different ways? So that's an important technique that I try to follow in my speech. And then there's a sensory appeal, the PQRS. Sensory is appealing to different kinds of learning styles and appeal styles of the audience. We talked about picturizing, but there are more senses to the human body. Try to appeal to the sense of smell, sense of touch, sense of the auditory, kinesthetic. And there's an entire science behind that you can go read up on. How do you appeal to multiple sensory? The more senses you appeal to, the more real you're making it for the people. Then finally, tension. Tension is about how do you make your audience, what is the right level of discomfort your speech should give the audience? That's a very important thing for you to ask as an advanced speaker. Your job is not to make the audience feel comfortable. I always tell myself, my job is to make the audience feel the right level of discomfort. Only then I know I've provoked something in their minds. What do you mean right level of discomfort? If the same example, if I've lost a best friend in my life, I want the audience to, I want to create a tension in my audience where they feel uncomfortable, but not too uncomfortable, but they feel, they feel uncomfortable with that tension that's happening in my speech, right? Or if I'm trying to provoke a new thought, saying, servant leadership is the best form of leadership, is what I'm trying to say. I want to create a discomfort with the way they are currently leading as leaders in their organizations. So how do I bring that discomfort where they are feeling naked, embarrassed, exposed into themselves, not in front of others? You never want to expose any person in front of others, but they feel uncomfortable about themselves. So any speech that brings discomfort is a speech that is working, but it should be within the zone of discomfort, not too much or too little. Now, when I define principles in my speech, then I get into the tools, which is the very end towards the right side of this chart here. I ask myself, how do I picturize? How do I question? How do I bring my sensory appeal? There is an entire repertoire of tools available for you. It could be quotations, it could be startling statistics, it could be personal stories, it could be humor, it could be jokes, it could be anecdotes, it could be metaphors, similes, figures of speech. All of these tools come to your service when you understand what are the principles that you're going to leverage in your speech. And the principles you're going to leverage in your speeches should be determined by truly understanding who your audience is, how their mind works, how are they irrational, etc., etc., etc. And the last point I want to end today's presentation with, and then we can hopefully have a few questions, is the structure. One of the things we haven't spoken about so far is how do you structure a speech so that it is so awesome? Well, I made this up, but I believe in it. In public speaking, the shortest path between 2 points is not a straight line. In motivation itself, it's not a straight line, isn't it? If your friend is going through a problem in life, obviously the answer is for him to cheer up. But go try telling him cheer up. That doesn't cheer him up. It's like telling somebody who's afraid to go on stage, saying, don't be afraid. That's not going to help them. So sometimes the shortest path to your destination is not the straight line. It requires a lot of things, some other things. So similarly, when you want to convey something to your audience, how do you structure your speech? One of the things that I love about Hollywood movies, more than the content of the stories, is the way they know to do storyboarding and story play. They'll start with the finale scene. The second scene will be flashback. The third scene will be a murder. The fourth scene will be something else. Then they'll bring things together in an otherwise ordinary movie, just with the structuring of the storyline, they would make it really exciting, isn't it? I just want to introduce you to a few kinds of structures, and then we'll stop today's session. Right? I mean, I wrote an article with 12 different techniques of structuring, but I'm just going to pick 3 or 4 just to whet your curiosity. Let's take a typical icebreaker speech in Toastmasters. Most of it is typically chronological, isn't it? That's the first structure that I'm talking about here. Chronological structure means you start and go in a sequential order according to timeline. I was born, say, 1982 in a place, this place. Here's where I went to school. These were my friends. I went to college. Then I got married. I have few kids, and I'm working in this profession, etc., etc., etc. Chronological structuring is very useful. If your speech is informational in nature, if it's a technical presentation, you're talking about some research and chronologically how it happened. If you're journaling your diary, if you're having casual discussions, if you're doing some confession to the police, hopefully you don't. Chronology is very useful. But in Toastmasters, chronology can get boring, right? Why? In a chronological structure, without your knowledge, you end up spending equal time in different parts of the chronology. Whereas there are certain parts in your life that are more interesting than other parts. So you don't want to always do chronological. So another technique is called anchoring, and many world champion speeches uses this. Anchoring is when you're focusing on specific episodes, or there is a specific focus you want to give to certain incidents. And then from there, you want to go past and present and future to give more dope to it. Let me tell you. So your same icebreaker speech, instead of starting it from where you were born, suppose you start by saying, 2010 was the best year in my life, because that's when my first baby was born. And I had completed I had just bought a house, blah, blah, blah. But 10 years before that, if you had told me that I would be successful in life, I would have laughed at you because I had all of these problems, etc., etc., etc. What I'm doing is I'm anchoring you at one event in my life, which is what I'm going to focus on in my speech. And then I'm going back to where I was born and all of those things, but I've already anchored you to something exciting. Another technique is, you'd often find this in world champion speeches, is called suspended story technique. Suspended information technique. If so many of these motivational speakers and all of these Facebook advertisers use the suspended story quite a lot. When you have these advertisements that you get on YouTube, they want to hook you. They want you to keep listening to them and not press on skip. So they would start telling you a story, but then suddenly they will suspend that story and start something else. So you continue to listening to them because you are so curious to hear how the first story ended. And now they've already suspended that story and gone to a second story. And towards the end, they finish the second story and then finish the first story. Let me give you an example. One of the world champions, I think Ryan Avery, his speech starts by saying he's standing in the wedding altar with his wife, and he's asked the question, will you take her as your wife? And he's looking into her eyes. Then he says, when I was young, my mother, and people are like, oh God, did you say you will or you will not? He has suspended the story at the wedding altar and then taking us to his childhood. And he's leading that story till the time of his wedding, closing the story of the childhood, and then finally closing the story of his wedding as well. So you're suspending the stories in between to continue them later. Well, there are many, many other hub and spoke. We may not have time to get into it now. And there are many kinds of ways you can structure your speech to make it more interesting to the audience. So let me pause now. It's a little more nerdy session today than my typical sessions, which are a little more motivational nature, because I wanted to show some slides to talk about topics, to talk about how do you really zoom in and zoom out to understand what's that core message you want to deliver. How do you build content, starting with fundamentals, then getting into principles, and then getting into tools? And then how do you structure speeches to elicit more excitement, Hollywood style, with your audience? So let me pause. Any questions, feel free to ask me. I have some time at hand.
Thank you so much, Aditya Maheswaran, for such a lovely presentation on how to craft our speeches. Wow, you explained it so easily and in such a simple way for all of us to understand, with your own personal experiences and experience of other renowned speakers. So now it's time for Q&A session. It said, good questions inform, great questions transform. But frankly, my dear members, there is something I want to tell you all. I'm so sad that no one sent me any questions. I guess you all know everything, or I'm sure that you don't want me to ask these questions directly to the world champion speaker. You all want to take the opportunity to ask directly to our world champion speaker. So now I hereon open up the floor to all the members of District 20 to ask in your questions directly to the world champion speaker, Aditya. 15 minutes we have Q&A, right? So over to you, my dear members.
Sure. And the questions need not be limited to just what we discussed. It could be, go back to your original question you had. And if it hasn't still been clarified, feel free to put it to me.
We have DTM Khalid Abdullah raising his hand.
Yes, thank you so much, Master Ceremonies. Would love to give hard time to our presenter in here. The question that I have was about suspense. I know you had 4 pillars in creating an impact on that last slide. How much suspense is enough? That's my question.
All right, Khalid triggered the starting of questions now, and I see a few more coming on the chat as well. How much suspense is enough? Listen, suspense, in my experience, suspense is not often the way we define it, like who murdered that person. You know, the suspense in movies is often finding out who the villain is. Not that suspense. Suspense is anything that creates a hook for the audience to continue to stay with your speech. The marketeers are really good at that. When you prepare these viral videos of these real estate advertisers, you know it's a video where they're just selling something to you, but the way they speak is something you will stick for the entire 4 minutes, because at any given point in time, they haven't answered the question that's running in your mind. How do we use that in our Toastmaster speeches? It starts by not revealing everything you want your audience to know right up front. It starting with a story that's captivating, but they're still guessing. How is it going to end? What's going to happen? It starts by having twists and turns in your speech where they think, oh, this is what he's going to say, but then you twist it again, saying it's something else. So it's really playing with the psychology of your audience to make them stick with your speech till the very end. So as long as the suspense doesn't confuse your audience further, you can have as much of it. It only makes it more interesting for the audience. Sometimes the suspense takes over the message and it only gets confusing. Then or sometimes you may have your key message coming in too late in your speech, which is also not too good for your speech. But as long as you're playing it well, it's a great tool to have. And almost all professions use it in terms of marketing and advertising. All right, so there are some questions on chat too, which is, how can I decide the most important points in my speech, especially while having a wide subject? How do I decide the most important points in my speech? I think it goes back to, if I understand your question right, which I don't know whether I have, when you have a wide subject, you really want to start with the end in mind. I often ask myself, what do I want my audience to say, think, feel, do at the end of my speech? Right? And I may not have answers to all of these 4 questions, but I'm trying to think, what do I want and this is design thinking, isn't it? This is how Apple creates iPhone. This is how new products are developed in tech companies, putting yourself in the shoes of the customer, the user, the end user. Why can't we do that in Toastmasters, right? So I remember there was this organization trying to solve for a problem. The problem was a lot of the employees were smoking cigarettes and they were butting it on the floor just outside the office. And so the place had become very messy. So they had tried to keep cigarette butt holders, but nobody was butting it in those holders. They were putting it on the floor. Now they decided to apply design thinking, which is, instead of forcing them to do something they don't want to do, how do we make it more appealing for them to do it? You know what they came up with? They tried to put posters, nobody listened to it. They tried to put, a lot of environmental messages, nobody listened to it. Finally, they came up with a solution. The solution was, they kept 2 holders. In one, they said Lionel Messi. In another, they say Cristiano Ronaldo. They said, whichever holder gets filled first, that footballer is a better footballer. Now, everybody wanted to support Messi. Fans said, I'm going to put it inside the Messi box because he's the better footballer. Now, remember what they've done. They've tapped into the psychology of their audience, right? They can keep saying the audience is dumb. They don't care about the environment, but that's not solving the problem. The problem is you have to put yourself in the psychology of your audience. So similarly, you got to start with your end in mind. What do I want my audience to say, to do, to feel, to think differently at the end of my speech? And what will be the main tools in my speech that will lead to that effect? Then you can never go wrong. The problem with a lot of us Toastmasters is we start with, do I have the right body language? Do I have the right voice? We see public speaking as an input mechanism, not an output mechanism. But true product companies or design thinkers always start with output and then trace it back to what should be the right amount of body language, what should be the right level of humor that will achieve my outcome. Let's take some questions on audio now.
We have Toastmaster Khalifa raising his hands from a long time. Can
Khalifa,
we have your question,
go for
please?
it.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yep.
All right. Could you please, distinguished Toastmaster Aditya, go back to the slide with the principles and tools?
Sure, you want me to put it up?
Yes, please.
Yeah. There you go.
Yeah, thank you. On the personal story and humor aspect, I've noticed that a lot of humorous speeches during this digital COVID era have been a bit hard to put forward because everyone's microphones are muted, so no one can laugh. So all of the jokes seem to land flat, even though they might be really funny after all. I'm not sure what your experience is with this, or if there's any way to mitigate it, or if it's still be solved when the meetings are physical again.
Yeah, it's a great question, something that bites us every time we speak, because I think it depends a lot on what style of humor are you more natural at. some people who are good at prepared jokes, which is, you write your joke, you memorize it, the prepared jokes where you come up with something. Like, for example, you never underestimate the intelligence of young children. I was with my sister last year, and I have a little niece. She's only 6 years old. So one day after dinner, my sister was doing the dishes, the vessels, and my little niece went and irritated my sister, saying, Mama, I have a question. My sister asked her, okay, tell me, what is your question? And my little niece said, Mama, why is your one or two hairs white in color? And after a point, my sister got irritated. She told her, I'll tell you why Mama's hair is white in color. Every time a daughter is naughty, Mama's hair, one more hair gets white in color. And my niece was so innocent. She looked at my sister and asked, Mama, is that why grandma's hair is fully white in color? So see, some of you laughed and it's a nice joke. See, prepared jokes, if they are funny, can still work in a Zoom environment. You know what doesn't work in a Zoom environment? Are speakers who love to draw energy from the audience as telling jokes, the impromptu, the spontaneous, the stand-up comedy kind of humor. I love that. If some of you have seen me in Bahrain or elsewhere live, I love spontaneous humor. I love picking what's happening in front of me. If somebody says something, I would poke fun at that person in a nice way, but I would still draw energy from here and give it to that side of the audience, draw energy there and do Q&A sessions in style. So if you're a more spontaneous person who's drawing from audience energy, then Zoom sucks. But you can still do the prepared humor very well if you're able to truly get good jokes. That would be my opinion.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Can we have DTM Khalid Jalal as AGD to raise his question?
Thank you very much, MC, for the opportunity. Been waiting for quite some time. DTM Aditya, the question is lengthy, but the answer, I'll make a scenario and then ask the question, because that's how I think I can justify my question. Now, there were few audience in this meeting. Since they left, I will not use their names since they're not here. We have one speaker who's a very well-known speaker in our District 20. When he speaks, it's just like a flute. Someone is playing a flute. That's sweet. He speaks in his speeches. And we had another champion. When he gives a speech, because of his voice pitch, you cannot leave the meeting. You listen to him all the time. Make sure that you listen word by word what he says. And then we have another champion speaker. He is in this meeting room, but I'm not going to use his name. When he gives a humorous speech, he brings the whole speech according to the body, the language and the gestures. He mixes up the whole thing. And if you just feel like you are laughing at each and every sentence he delivers. Then we have another speaker. Once he gave a speech, he literally made at least me in the whole crowd cry, because he brought a personal story, very emotional. He made the audience cry because it was so touching. And that's because I felt all of these 4 or 5 examples I've given, if anybody else in this room used the same speech, delivered in the same way, same voice style, they will not be able to do justice to that speech. The right script, right pauses, body gestures, maybe the pitch, but they will still not be able to do justice to the same speech. So how important, and what do you suggest also, and how important is this speech to match with the person's personality?
It's a great question, Khalid, and you literally made it a case study with 4 different examples. So well asked. Now, the greatest success lies in the intersection between talent and opportunity, they say, isn't it? So if you are lucky enough to find a style early on that you're good at, that you like, and your audience also likes, then you got to embrace it and work with it. A lot of times what happens, Khalid, the 4 examples you took were all, you mentioned champion speakers, great speakers. Those speakers usually don't have a problem because they've discovered their style, they're good at something. But what about the 95% of people who are asking themselves, who am I as a speaker? I don't find myself so good in making the audience cry, like you said, or making them laugh, as you said, or winning the world champion, as you said. What do I do? Who's there to help me? Who do I follow? Do I try to be like him, be like her? So when it comes to the 90% of the people who may not be in the same bracket as those 4 champions that you spoke about, that's where the trick, that's where it gets trickier. People are naturally gifted, like a Roger Federer didn't really need to ask himself, do I copy John McEnroe? Do I copy Boris Becker? Do I copy Rafael? I mean, all he did was play that backhand when he was 15, and it kind of, the ball just soared to the other side. Probably a Dhananjay Hetirachi did not need to ask, do I become like this champion, that champion? He spoke on stage and the audience went, go on, Dhananjay, go on. But what about the 95% of the population who don't have that natural gift or that gift of the gab to immediately know? They need hard work. So it's a great question. So if you have discovered something that works for you, absolutely go nourish it, water it, protect it, and be more of yourself. But if you haven't done that, remember, you're one among the 90%, you're not alone there. Then you got to experiment. And that's where we miss out on something. We continue to be average because we're afraid of experimenting. It's okay to try to be like another person, but don't try to copy. Do it as an experiment to discover, am I pushing myself in the right way? You will know when it's not you. You will know when you don't draw energy out of something. I remember in 2008, I had won I was my club president. I'd been a Toastmaster for 3-4 years. At that time, Barack Obama was just young knight in shining armor in America. He was making all these like big speeches for his first election. And he gave some of these iconic speeches. So suddenly I was listening so much of Barack Obama's speeches, and I tried to without my knowledge, I was speaking in moving like him, speaking like him. Or when I listened to a lot of Dr. Martin Luther King's speech, I was suddenly speaking like him. Then I listened to other speeches, I was speaking like them. It's through the process you discover who you are. So I would say that if you know who you are, be thankful every day in your life that you are blessed with that intrinsic, inherent, self-evident, intuitive understanding of your strength. If not, you're one among 90%, and struggle, strive, experiment, and find out who you are.
Wow, thank you so much, Aditya.
Thank you, Aditya.
Yep. We will have one last question now. That is from our Division H Director, DTM Seham.
Good evening, DTM Aditya. Good evening, everyone. Actually, my question is regarding that I am a person that don't join contests because I feel that I can't repeat my speech. Whenever I have a speech, I need to feel it. So when I first deliver my speech, I feel that I can't repeat it again because I want to be that sincere or enthusiastic to reach the audience. The audience will feel that I am just repeating, not talking from my heart. How can I overcome this thing? How do I reach people and feel emotionally at the same time? Thank you so much.
Sure, thank you. I just want to ensure I understood your question. Is your question, how do I connect with my audience? Can you just repeat your question alone?
No, not how. I mean that it's inside me. It's me, not the audience. It's me that I feel that if I'm repeating my speech, I would lose this enthusiasm, or I don't feel that I'm talking from my heart.
Yeah, got it.
This is what I mean. Yeah, thank you so much.
It's a good question. Well, Seham, do you like listening to music?
Yes.
Tell me some song that you like a lot, if any.
You and I am the champion.
Okay, let's take I'm the Champ. How many times you might have listened to that, Seham?
Oh, if I am in the mood, I might listen for 10, 20 minutes, 20 times. No worries.
Yeah, not just at one go, but in your life, how many times you would have listened to that?
Many, many, many times.
Many times. Correct. You're right. Probably 100 times. Now, why is it, or how is it that you listen to the same lyrics, same tune? You already know how the song is going to end. You already know what the next line is, but you still listen to that song the 101st time and still draw a lot of energy from the song. What about it?
Because it touches my heart. That's why.
Exactly. Absolutely right. If our speeches get boring for ourselves the third time and fourth time, it means it's a speech that's not true enough to move ourselves first. When you hit a speech in your life, when you write a masterpiece, even if you are delivering that speech the 50th time, you're reliving the original emotion that you lived through in that story in your speech, in that experience in your speech. And even if it's the 50th time, you say it with the same energy. It's like a lover talking about his love to his friends. He may be telling about his love to the 100th time to his 100th friend. He's still drawing energy talking about the love. It's like that poet talking about that beautiful scenery. It is inundating. It's overflowing. It's never a point where the scenery has become boring for a poet. It's always beautiful. It's never a time football has become boring for a football fan. Even after 4 hours of talking about it, he still can talk more about it because he's just in love with the sport. If you're in love with the story, if it's true to who you truly are, and if you think this is truly something that has transformed me, therefore will transform my audience, such a speech, you will never get bored of, even saying it the 4th or 5th time. Because it's not about the words, it's not about the intro conclusion. You know there is something in that speech that can change people. So as long as the audience keeps changing, it's an opportunity for you to change lives. So if you don't feel that's Seham, you're yet to find your masterpiece. The moment you find your speech, which is your masterpiece, you would realize that you can, it's like your favorite music. You could say it 10 times a day, you would still love it.
Yeah, okay. Thank you so much.
Pleasure.
Thank you so much, Aditya, for answering all the questions so enthusiastically. Thank you so much for that sincere commitment and dedication you have shown to this workshop series done by a peculiar team of District 20. Thank you so much. Gratitude is not the greatest of virtues, but the parent of all virtues. Before that, can I request all our members to open up your cameras with a beautiful smile so that we can click a cute picture with our world champion speaker, Aditya. Everyone. $20 more seconds. Everyone, it's a nice chance to capture every one of you in one screen. That's it. Okay, 5, 4,
That's
3,
all left.
2, last chance, 1. The host is going to click the picture now. All ready? Ready. Fine.
Done.
Say done. People are holding their breath.
Did I thought I said done.
Guys, really.
So it's done. Thank you so much, my dear members, for opening up your cameras. Don't Don't close. Let it be open. So now we have, before I signing off from my MC role, thank you so much for the opportunity from District 20 and Apiquity team for being the MC of today's event. Thank you so much, and giving back control to the Program Quality Director of District 20, Aaron, our smiling DTM Khalid Abdullah, for his vote of thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you very
so
much,
much.
our MC.
Wait,
Sorry for the
wait.
confusion. I made it on purpose.
Thank you, CGP. Well, I would like first to thank DTM Aditya for being here with us today and sharing his inspiration with us. And I think everyone was happy there and they were all in tune until the end of the meeting. So that was really awesome. Thank you so much, DTM Aditya, for being here today with us and sharing your knowledge and experience. Thanks to the Master of Ceremonies, Toastmaster Jenny Johara, who controlled the whole meeting marvelously. Thank you so much, Toastmaster Jenny, for being there. And thanks to our timer, who is behind the scene, managing the time, Toastmaster Hussein Khamis. Thank you so much, Toastmaster Hussein Khamis, for helping with timing this great event. Thanks to the audience, thanks to the club members, presidents or beyond, thank you so much for joining us here today. As I said, this whole workshop came through you. I had a question and I had a request, and that's why I did that request. There would be another workshop coming next week. Again, someone requested it, which was pathways. So there would be another workshop coming in on pathways. If you need any more education sessions, please let me know, and the PQD team would definitely do that. DTM Khalid Jalal, yes, please.
I just want to add that we also have the LinkedIn sessions. If people are interested to know how to get new members for the clubs or charter new clubs, we also have weekly sessions so they can also participate. Thank you.
Exactly. Thank you so much, Brother Khalid. And that's another layer of adding value to Toastmasters specifically at that specific time for heading toward the biggest milestone of this term, April renewal. Thank you so much, everyone, for being a great audience. Until we meet again into further sessions, God bless you. Take care. See you, inshallah. Thank you so much, DTM Aditya.